I know that the title for today's message may be a little bit unique. What does it mean to become a Chick-Fil-A church? But I want to talk about Chick-Fil-A for just a little bit. Not that we need to talk about restaurants per se, but there's something about this particular fast food restaurant that is worth our attention. As a matter of fact, Chick-Fil-A, even though being closed on Sundays, so you can't run out today and go to Chick-fil-A, but Chick-fil-A sells 4 times as much chicken as Kentucky Fried Chicken. In July of 2012, in ranking the different fast food restaurants, Chick-fil-A was number 10. In July 2018, Chick-fil-A was rated as number 1. What is it about a chicken sandwich place would draw our attention to it? There have been some trying to figure that out. I was reading some articles written by business-type folks, and here's some of the things that they pointed out. It said people like chicken sandwiches and waffle fries. Another was it courts families. Another observation made was it is wise in how it gains attention of potential customers. Another insight was the company's commitment to religious and social stances actually helps businesses, or helps their business. You may, from time to time, hear on the news that a college campus somewhere has barred Chick-fil-A from coming on campus, or someplace Chick-fil-A is wanting to open a restaurant and there's protests and that kind of thing. But it's quite interesting that about almost any time you pass Chick-fil-A when it's open, it's packed. It's packed out. Now, Chick-fil-A does have some unusual business practices, to be sure. One is they pay their employees more than their rival restaurants. Some time ago, there was a snowstorm that stranded a lot of travelers in the Northeast, I believe it was. And those stranded found themselves blessed with free Chick-fil-A food and beverages as the restaurant brought it to those who had stranded. In the wake of the terrorist shooting in a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida, Chick-fil-A opened on a Sunday and provided free food and beverages to those that were donating blood at a local blood bank in reference to the shooting. Recently, there was a military veteran that was honored by Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A has honored them with free meals for the rest of his life. That's just a few of these unusual kinds of things, business practices that Chick-fil-A does. And of course, one that captures the attention of a lot of folks is it's closed on Sunday. It's closed on Sunday. Some others trying to discover the secret to Chick-fil-A have noted that the food quality is good. But I want you to pay close attention to some of the things that follow. In reviews, customers rave about its cleanliness, quick service, hard-working, and courteous employees. A kind of an impromptu survey was done online, asking people, why would you go to Chick-fil-A? And here are some of the responses, and I still want you to pay close attention to a theme that's going to emerge out of these observations that customers have. One, they talk about, well, the food's delicious. But pay close attention to what comes next. This person wrote, it's one of the few places where the employees are actually competent and don't try to make you feel like you're bothering them. It's delicious, but notice, and the service is fast and polite. The food is good, observes another. The service is incredible. Another notes, the employees are courteous and friendly. We don't have a close, Chick-Fil-A real close to us, but we stopped at one a few years ago, and I forgot, it may have been in Tennessee or somewhere. I can't remember. We was coming back from somewhere. Anyway, I do remember what happened when we were there. As we got our food and whatnot, an employee came by and said, take our trash and throw it away for us. And I said, well, thank you. And you know what she said? My pleasure. My pleasure. Now, I'm not here to talk to you about fast food restaurants. You know that. But I want to use this particular restaurant chain to help us kind of zero in on why and what I'm going to be talking about today. And that is, how do we become a church not motivated to sell chicken sandwiches, but motivated to touch the lives of people for the cause of Christ? How should we do that? How should we approach that? And I'm going to suggest to you that there are some things we can learn from a fast food restaurant in how we should deal with people when they come, and people wherever we may meet them. Did you notice that reoccurring theme in the observations of people? Both those that were writing a professional kind of a critique of the company, as well as just everyday customers. It focused in on not simply the food, but on the people. Fast, courteous, service. They're polite, and etc. You get that kind of impression. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. When we move into this new year that we're on the verge of, how should we view people that come? How should we view people that we invite? How should we approach all of these things in a God-honoring, Christ-exalting way? First and foremost, I think we should remember something. Remember what Jesus informed us and taught us in Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. In everything, therefore, treat people the same way you want them to treat you. For this is the law and the prophets. So when someone comes, will you invite someone to church and you bring them with you, or you meet them and you have them sit with you, or you come into this building and you find someone seated that you don't recognize? How should you, how should I, how should we as a congregation, how should we approach those folks? What should we do? Well, I want to first tell you a few things that we should not do. All right? A few things we should not do. So, what a friendly church doesn't do. First, a friendly church does not put people or a guest on the spot. Nobody likes that to happen to them. To be put on the spot, to be singled out, to somehow being treated as if you're here but you don't belong here, kind of thing. Churches have struggled with this. How do you do this? I remember going to a church many years ago, actually before I was even in seminary. And it was kind of what I thought was a happening church. I wanted to see what was going on there, so I went to church there. And it was unusual. The pastor said, I would like for all of our members to stand. So all the members stood. Guess who didn't stand? Guess who stood out? Me. Sure. Now, I wasn't embarrassed by it, but some people could be. And then they sang a song, a welcome song. Now, not to get too graphic, but I'm sitting, they're standing, they're singing to me. What am I seeing? Some of you think for a moment you'll get it. I'm looking at the backsides of all these people. Now you get it, right? Well, I didn't feel welcomed, but I felt kind of put on the spot. I told you some time ago, I don't know, a few years ago about an experience that Tara and I had at a church in Springfield, Missouri. We went in there, and they were asking us to fill out the visitor's card, just like John did a few moments ago, asked some of you. And they told us to drop in the offering plate, so we did. But it was different. Instead of the offering, they brought the offering plate right back up to the front and set it down. Didn't think much about it. Then after the service, the pastor, he stood back down here. He fished around inside of those offering plates and he pulled out the cards. That morning, I don't remember any cards but 2. Now, I'm sure there were more than that, but there were 2. And he said, he read the name off. Andy DeWitt, where are you? Here I am. Would you stand up, please? He stood up. Tell us a little about yourself and where you're from. And did the same for Tara. And I'm sure there may have been another 2-3 guests or so in. I don't remember. But I do remember that. I'll never forget that. Now, there are 2 things we're told that people really are uncomfortable with. You know what it is? Being at a party where you don't know anybody. And secondly, be called on to speak publicly without being able to be prepared. So that day, going to that church, make your nightmares come true. Here we go. Now, I was a seminary student at the time, so I wasn't overwhelmed by it, but I was just thinking, if someone who was very uncomfortable about coming to church came and they did what they were asked to do, and then they were asked to stand in front, and that church probably had 400 or 500 people in it, to stand in front and stand up and introduce themselves to everybody else, you think they'll ever come back to that church? Why? Because they were put on the spot. And something that happens, folks, is that as time changes, so do the expectations and what people are comfortable with. I'll give you an example. If you're talking to somebody my dad's generation, and you don't shake their hand, that's looked upon negatively. But you bring a 25-year-old man in, he probably is never going to think about shaking someone's hand. The way of greeting has changed significantly. And then people have become, as you are quite aware, much more health conscious. We are in the midst of flu season. We don't know where that hand's been. And they stick it out to us, and you just don't know. Just don't know. So keep your hand away. Carry hand sanitizer close to you. Keep yourself healthy. But, things have changed that way. We don't put friends on the spot. But also, though, a second aspect of this is a friendly church does not ignore guests either. It does not ignore guests. We can be so afraid that we're going to overdo it that we underdo it. That we don't engage people. What if you set up toward the front, you don't always see who's behind you or maybe who's in the balcony. If you're in the balcony, you may not see who's down underneath the balcony. You may not see those folks. And you could be coming week after week after week and maybe not ever encounter those people. And you may be thinking, if I walk up to somebody and say, hey, it's good seeing you here today. Welcome you. And they say, well, I'm here every Sunday. You might think, oh, that's embarrassing. I didn't. That's okay. You won't die from that. And it's good that we greet one another and greet someone that we don't recognize or someone that we may have not seen recently. It's okay just to greet. You don't have to get into an extended, long conversation, but just say, hey, good to see you today. Glad you're here. Everybody should be greeted in one manner or another, usually and hopefully many different times. But we don't have to necessarily, bring them in and no one ever speak to them. It's so easy to sit by people we know, to seek out people we know, to talk to people that we know, that someone that we don't recognize can sit there by themselves for an entire service and never once be spoken to. Never once be spoken to. On one occasion, I've mentioned this to you before, when I was a seminary student, since Tara's family lives over on Somerville Road, there were 2 times I came to this church. I can tell you where I sat. I sat right in front of Ronnie. You see that pew right there? I guess it's the one for the strangers because it's empty right now, but that's the pew that I sat in. I sat on the end right there next to the wall. Did that twice. Not successive weeks, but twice. And I just simply, folks, no one spoke to me. No one. Now, honestly, I didn't speak to anybody either. Okay? So, yes, you can. I could shoulder some of that responsibility, but I can also affirm this, that no one even said hello. Even when I came in, there was a couple of fellas back there when I picked up the church bulletin. One handed me the bulletin, but he kept in conversation with the fellow that was with him. Okay? So it's kind of, all right. Now, I'm a seminary student, so I'm not offended. But what if somebody is really kind of struggling with life? Maybe they've got a lot of stuff in their background, and maybe they feel like, well, maybe God can do something in my, whatever, I'll go. And they come in, and nobody greets them. No one says anything to them. No one acknowledges them. I don't mean bring them up front and make them stand. I'm talking about just, hey, glad you're here, kind of thing. We don't ignore people. People should feel like, that they're welcomed, they're wanted, but not watched, not put on the spot. So that's just a few things that a church shouldn't do. So what should a church do? What a friendly church does? I need to stop and pause for just a moment. And I hope you understand what I'm getting ready to say here. You're probably not going to say it. You won't understand it until I say it. But do you know that a friendly church, no such thing exists? Did you know that? I was kind of thinking about that. Even the satire that's on the front of the bulletin, if you look at the picture on there, that's satire, by the way. Every church thinks they're a friendly church, but there's no such thing as a friendly church. The only thing is that there's friendly people that are a part of that church. A church can't be friendly. Only you can. Does that make sense to you? Let that kind of soak in for a moment. Really, only you can be friendly. A church can't be. And if 2 or 3 people are friendly and everybody else isn't, there's no way that's a friendly church. Can't even come close to calling it that. So with that in mind, remember that the focus is, of course, is on us as people. If we're friendly, the church is friendly. If we're not, the church isn't. In Leviticus chapter 19, verses 33 and 34, when the stranger resides with you in the land, you are to do him no wrong. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as a native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. There's some observations I'd like to make about this particular passage in Leviticus. When someone is new, someone is a stranger to us, we are to treat that person, we are to treat him or her this way. We are to treat them well. We are to treat them like family. Now, if you've got a family that's always at war, maybe you shouldn't treat them that way. But if you've got a normal family, and not a dysfunctional family, but a normal family, treat them like family. And then third, you're to love them as you love yourself. Love them as you love yourself. Bottom line, the point is simply is you treat them the way you would like to be treated. That's how you treat others. So how's that worked out? What does it look like? Well, a friendly church is composed of friendly people who, first of all, give up their rights. Give up their rights. This is where I'm going from preaching to meddling, okay? So you know in advance what's going to happen. What I'm going to talk about, well, let's think about it this way. You walk in. You have a place that you normally sit. That's home for you. It's comfortable. I mean, if you don't get to sit there, your whole day is just out of kilter. And honestly, I can mentally take roll by just standing here and looking. I seriously can. I can take roll. I don't do it anymore because I sit down here, but I used to sit up here. I could say, oh, they're missing, they're absent. Oh, yeah, he's back. You know, I could tell. Could take roll. Because you all are creatures of habit. You sit where you're comfortable, where you like to be. So let me caution you. You come in where you normally sit. There's some other people sitting. I'm going to tell you what to do. And it's not politely say, you're in my seat. That's not what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to stop. I want you to briefly pray, God, would you speak to those folks today? And thank you that they're here. And sit in somebody else's seat. Okay? You can have fun too. We don't have assigned seats, folks. I know, 150 years ago, families would buy a pew for a year. That's how the church raised the funds to operate the church, is that a family would have a pew. It was their seat. We don't do that anymore. So even though there's certain places that you're comfortable, certain places you want to be, don't ever say to someone, you're in my seat. Because in reality, they're not. They're just where you are comfortable sitting. So remember that. Another area is parking. Is parking. If you're physically able, don't park next to the building. Park out there somewhere. Why? Save those better parking spots for people who are visiting, who are guests. I mean, if we have a guest coming to our home, we want to accommodate them. We want to expect them. We want to do whatever is necessary to make them feel welcome and wanted. If we make them park as far away from the building as possible, that's really not doing that. Now, if you're not physically able, that's different. But if you are physically able, just park further away. Reserve those spots. Reserve those spots for someone who may be visiting. You know, it's why is it important? Why is it important just to give up your rights? What'd you learn today in church? Well, preacher told me to give up my seat and give up my parking spot. Well, if you got that, you got it. I am telling you that. For the benefit of others. Why is that important? We're not selling chicken sandwiches. But what we are doing, and what we should endeavor to be doing, is to offer people Christ. And whatever we need to do that, we need to do that. Even if it means our personal preferences have to be shoved aside. And that goes into a lot of different areas. But how we do things, when we do things, why we do things, all that may need to change for their benefit. We exist not only to come together for God's people to worship, we also exist for those who are not here. But they don't know that. They don't know, except maybe if they're having financial problems or something like that, they may come. But we exist for something far more important than paying a bill. We exist because here we lift up and exalt and honor and glorify Christ. If that means I need to walk further to the building, even when it's raining, so be it. Make sense? Make sense? We want people to hear the good news, the gospel. We want people to feel welcomed. We want them to understand that they are important to God. We forget that sometimes. We forget just how important that old reprobate is out there. That person maybe that we just don't like much. Or that person who just simply doesn't seem to care anything about the things of God. We forget how important to Christ they are. Important enough to die for. So a little inconvenience on our part is hardly anything, right? So a person should feel welcomed. They should feel wanted. We want you here. And at the same time, not put on the spot. Inside of your bulletin, I'm going to do a little commercial plug. There is the 10 Commandments for a friendly church. Little bit written with tongue in cheek. But I encourage you to read that sometime. Don't read it now. I mean, you listen to me now. You can do that later. But you can read over those because sometimes they're very true to life. The one that really stuck out for me is saving seats. You ever seen people lay hymnals, Bibles, coats, all that kind of stuff there? And the observation in that particular commandment, I think it's around number 7 or 8, something like that, I can't remember. But it's something to the effect, it's like putting up a no trespassing sign. You are not welcomed here, this spot. You can look at those at your convenience. Secondly, though, a friendly church is friendly intentionally. Intentionally. What I mean by that is that we have to think about it. We have to do it. Intend to do it. Don't think it's just going to happen naturally. And so with some people it might, but it's not for everybody. It doesn't happen naturally. We can be rushed. We can be thinking about a lot of things that we have on our mind, on our plate. We could be stressed. There could be a whole host of reasons that we would walk by someone we've never met before and never even give them a glance or a smile because you have to stop and intentionally say, I'm going to do this. Now, after today, today you'll probably be, oh yeah, I can do that. But wait February, March, and it's easy. This talk today will just fade from your memory. It'll fade from your memory, and we'll get back to our normal rut and do what we normally do unless we intentionally step out of it. Here's some things to ponder. The most important seats in this building, if you stood where I am right now, you could tell easily where they are. It's not these first 3. Is it? Now, if Garth Brooks was standing where I am, where are the premium seats? Right there. Be people fighting for those seats. And he probably would spit just as much as I do. But they'd still sit there. Now, but here, today, well, let's see. Over here, toward the back. Over here, we got a few right here, but it's still, most are toward the back. In the center section, guess where? Mainly toward the back. That tell you anything? You all sitting in the wrong seats. You need to be up here in the front. No. If someone comes in, would come in as a guest, a visitor for the first time, do you think they want to do this? They want to walk all the way past you people and sit up here? No, I've stood here enough and seen them come in. You know what they want to do? They're looking for a seat in the back. And if I went to a strange place, that's exactly where I want to sit. You know why? Quick getaway. Easy escape. Which leads me to something else. On the ends. By the aisles. Those are premium seats. Because just think for a moment. Just say we had a concert going on. That's when most people would come. We'd have a building full. And you're sitting there on the end. There's a couple of seats right in the middle. And you're going to make that person climb over you to get to that seat? Yeah, you are, because you're going to sit right on the edge, because that's where you like sitting. No. Scoot in. I actually was at a church service one time, and I don't know whether a special event or what it was, but the building was full. And one of the whoever was on the platform walked up and said, "There's a few more seats. If you see people coming still in, would you scoot in?" I thought there was going to be a riot. I'm exaggerating a little, but not much. There were a lot of people. You could hear moaning and groaning and carrying on. Why make somebody climb over you? And why not reserve some of those seats in the prime seating areas for someone to kind of slip in and be seated without feeling like they've got to parade themselves in front of everybody? Just think about that. And another thing to remember and to practice, the 2-minute rule. 2-minute rule. What I mean by the 2-minute rule is simply, in a little while, we're going to sing a song. After the song is completed, I'm going to pray a prayer. That is, and customarily, that's when we dismiss, is after the prayer. For the next 2 minutes, don't talk to anybody that you know. Make it a rule. And if somebody you know comes up to you, say, "Nope, can't talk to you now." It may feel good to do that, but just do that. And seek out somebody. Just look around. Maybe there's somebody you don't know well, or someone that maybe you don't recognize. Speak with them. Let them know, "Hey, I'm glad that you were here. I hope that something occurred today that touched your heart, because we're here for Christ." Just something. You don't have to get into a long conversation, but for 2 minutes. For 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. It goes by pretty fast. And then after that, you can gather up in the holy huddles and talk to everybody you want to talk to, and ignore those you don't want to talk to. Because that's why we're here. Not to talk to people that we know simply and only, but to try to touch the lives of people we may not know. Do you know how? And for you, it's not this way, but to walk into a place where you're very anxious, you know how hard that is? How to come in and to sit down, and you really don't know hardly anyone, or maybe just one or two people, maybe not even anybody. How difficult that is. That can be pretty anxiety producing. I've literally talked to people, and this is not an exaggeration, that are actually physically trembling because they're very nervous about being just around common folks like us. But to them, it's new, it's unknown, and it's somewhat frightening. It'd go a long way to alleviate that with a friendly hello and a smile. Glad you're here. Kind of relax. Why is this important? In everything, therefore, treat people the same way that you would like to be treated. That's how we should treat folks. A guest, we expect them. We want them to feel welcomed. We want them to know that we're glad they're here. We wish for them to come back at any opportunity they have. We care. And this church can never, ever carry the title of a friendly church unless we as individual people are friendly people. Because a church can't be friendly. Only you can. Only you can. And why? I want to reemphasize another time. Why is it important? Because eternity hangs in the balance. Everyone that walks through that door or these doors are going to spend eternity somewhere. And we have been commissioned with a task to carry the news of where they can spend that eternity, but only through Him who gave Himself for them. And of course, for us. For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. That's why we're here. That's our task. That's our job. That's our mission. Jesus states in one of His parables, when the Son of Man comes, will He find faith on earth? When the Son of Man comes, will He find us people of faith? When the Son of Man comes, will He find us doing what He told us to do? Let's bow together. Father, there is much that diverts our attention these days. Everyone in this building probably has a lot of things filling their lives. A lot of things that call for our attention. And some of those things are good things. But nevertheless, they can distract us from the main thing. Even our challenges, even our problems, our fears, our failures, can sometimes so haunt us that we are so preoccupied with ourselves that we don't even notice other people. Father, help us to be concerned about those things which You are concerned about, which first and foremost is, of course, the people that Christ has died for. Help us to be intentional about reaching out and reaching and touching the lives of people for Your glory's sake. Help us to get outside of ourselves in the respect of being concerned about those around us. Father, today I pray that as we prepare to sing in just a moment, that Your will be done. That our hearts and minds will be attuned to and listening for that still small voice of Your Spirit, showing us in our lives not only our failures, but also reminding us of Your deep and abiding love for us as Your people. The tempter hisses in our ears all the time. And unfortunately, at times we believe him instead of You. Father, I pray as well as just prior to our singing that if there needs to be someone to respond to Your call today, may they do so. For it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.